I cannot care for me if I don't know me. But that means I have to give up and release the rules about who I should be.
You're listening to Good Faith Weekly. I'm Mitch Randall.
And I'm Missy Randall.
We're here each week exploring the intersection of faith and culture
We find people who stand up, speak out, and step forward.
for inclusion, freedom, and justice for all.
It's time for Good Faith Weekly.
Brought to you by Good Faith Media. Welcome to Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, Missy and I are going to catch up. Then later on the pod, we sat down with Faith Clarke, who is an author, educator, and advocate. It is a wonderful conversation and a great pod you're going to want to listen to. So stay tuned. Hello there, Missy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, and you?
What?
What do you mean, what? You can't hear me? I know. It's all those voices in your head. It gets loud in there, a little crowded. And
They are pretty loud, but not as loud as something else. And we will talk about that in a moment.
Put a pin in that.
I do have a vent that I'm bringing to the pod today. But before we
excellent.
get into my vent,
Everybody loves a good vent from Missy.
everybody loves a good vent. I have to tell our listeners what just happened a little while ago in our house that is so funny.
Oh my gosh, the Rolodex
You
is
have
spinning
no
right
idea what
now.
I'm talking about.
I have
do you?
no idea, and I'm terrified.
I know you are. So today was the day that we had our house checked for bugs. We have a contract
Yes.
with the pest control, and they
We
come
do.
out and look and
Take
they do
care of
some-
all the critters.
They do some spraying
Because when you live in a 100-year-old house, you have critters.
as our regular listeners are fully aware, we have dealt with all manner of critters, both six-legged, eight-legged, four-legged. I mean, you name it, we've had it. So in any case, today was the day. So we get people who come in there, they're pretty regular.
Right.
Well, we had a new guy the last few times, and this time he comes in here and he's, doing his thing, and he comes back around to leave, and you happen to be in front of my desk talking to me, and he was kind of confused. He said, you guys do, podcast or something? And you said, oh yeah, we do. Because people that come to do anything in the house, they come into your office and see the recording equipment.
Right.
They're always very curious about that. And I don't even think about it. I don't feel like it's unusual for people to be home working during the day anymore
Yes.
because so many people do. But I guess that's still strange.
Not to mention that everybody and their dog has a podcast.
Exactly. So he was starting to ask some questions about,
Right.
oh, you guys, so you work together? And you said, yeah. He said, yeah, I noticed you were kind of talking to her
Oh,
like,
no, I know where you're going with this.
goes-
Don't say it. Don't say it.
No, I'm saying it.
I'm going to catch so much hell on this.
Exactly. This is a young guy. When I say young, I mean he's
Yeah.
not college age, but younger
Yeah.
than
He's
us.
not our age.
Yeah. And so he said, "Yeah, I noticed you were kind of talking to her like a
No,
secretary,
I wasn't.
like a secretary."
I was, for the record, I was not speaking to you like a secretary.
That was so get me my coffee wasn't like go take
No,
me
I
like
did not say that. I said, get my hot cocoa.
It was so funny.
Oh
It
my
was
gosh.
just perfect. And then he felt terrible
felt
for
so
saying
bad.
that. You could tell he felt bad for the way it came out, and it was just
Yeah.
so. But he said, "No, I just meant that we were speaking in a business way." But
Right.
just that was such a perfect line that I will cherish it always,
cherish it.
and give you hell, like you said, for speaking to me like a secretary. So I was very thankful. to
Still
have
waiting
that.
on that cocoa, by the way.
Oh yeah, you'll be waiting a while. But in the meantime, as we kind of alluded to earlier or when we first started the podcast, I am having some hearing issues.
Yes, you are. So
So-
take that pen out. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it because this is all consuming in my life right now.
Right.
And so I thought I would come here to the listeners with I just need to vent about this. And also I know there's probably some other people out
We're
there
here
who
for it.
are going through what I've been going through, and it's created some kind of funny and stressful moments for us the last several weeks. But really this started for me during COVID,
Mhm.
towards the end of I don't want to say the end of COVID, but
Yeah.
early, I don't know, late 2021,
Sure.
early 2022. I noticed I've always had a ringing in my ear off and
Mhm.
on since I was a child. My ears would ring, it'd go away, ring, go away. And then during the height of COVID, I just had this persistent ringing in my ear, would not
Right.
go away. And I finally kind of realized one day, is not going away. And at
Mhm.
night when I was going to sleep, it was really bad. And so I checked in with my doctor thinking after doing, my Google research, because
Because you do have a PhD in Google
I have a
research.
PhD in Googling, and decided that this must be caused by a side effect of some medication I had been on. And so called my doctor. I'm like, hey, this is going on. I think
And for the record, it wasn't because I was talking to you like a secretary. The ringing did not start.
Not that time, yeah. So go to the doctor, and she's like, I really think you should have your hearing tested. I was like, I hear fine. In fact, my ears are super sensitive, right?
Mhm.
And she's like, I just think you should go check in with this other doctor who happens to be a friend of ours. So I went in to do the hearing test and came back out thinking I had aced it. And they're like, no, you have some hearing loss.
Yeah.
And I was just
It was startling,
devastated.
yeah.
Again, not old enough to think I had like age-related
Mhm.
hearing loss. And so they sent me to a specialist, actually. And I went to this specialist and did a whole battery of tests and learned that I do have chronic or whatever constant tinnitus,
Mhm.
which
And that is the proper pronunciation, because for a long time I called it something else.
I called it tinnitus.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
But I guess all the people in the medical office say tinnitus,
That's
so
right.
I'm going to say that they do it
Yeah,
right.
so I just wanted to make that clear, because there are going to be people who listen to this say, "What is she talking about?" So
I still
that's it.
prefer tinnitus
I do
because
too.
I like the itis part better. But
You always like a good itis. I
well,
understand.
right, we'll go with itis, tinnitus. So, anyways, which is this persistent ringing in my ears, which I'm not sure what kind of caused it initially. I don't know if this that I had from a child has just gotten worse or whatever. But anyway, so they did this hearing test. I'm learning a lot during this process, and apparently there's certain sounds I don't hear. And apparently what I told you earlier was right, that I do have highly sensitive ears. In fact, there are 3, I think, different conditions that the audiologist named that cause sensitivity to hearing. I have all 3.
Wow.
And she looked at me afterwards and she said, I really don't know how you're functioning in the world. And I said, same.
Yeah, we're all wondering that.
So one of the things, yes, I'm highly sensitive to sounds. And I have that misophonia or whatever it is, where sounds make me angry and all of the things, which makes me a delight to live with.
Especially a baritone voice.
Well, chewing, breathing, snoring, all those things.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway.
You have literally woken me up in the middle of the night and told me to stop breathing.
That is not untrue. I did, because it was too loud.
And I think my answer was, I'll try.
Yes. So obviously very sensitive ears. The other problem I have is because my ears are hearing differently, I can't tell where sounds are coming from,
Right.
which I have noticed over the last several years, which becomes very, very stressful when I'm driving because you hear a siren and, you need to pull over, and that has caused me great anxiety. And again, just not realizing that any of this was different or something was wrong. It's what you live with. It's what you know.
Yeah. Because we've often talked about, just the confusion of like a siren or a horn on or inside a song, for example. But
on the radio on a commercial.
But for you couldn't. I mean, you literally can't tell where that's coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's gotten worse over the last several years. We hear, sounds in the house. And for a long time, I would argue with you about where something was coming from. And now I just look at you. I'm like, you're going to have to tell me. I have no idea where that sound is coming from exactly, because what my hearing is telling me is not accurate.
Yeah.
Very frustrating. Anyways, so once I saw the audiologist and she kind of named all of these different things that were going on, I felt real good about myself. And she's like, what's interesting to me is with hearing loss, and again, I'm probably speaking to a lot of people who know this, but it's not like a volume dimming. It's certain sounds you don't hear, certain frequencies you don't hear. So that the way that shows up, at least for me, is that I hear you talking. I always do. I misunderstand the words that you're saying.
A lot of that has to do with my pitch. I mean, literally my pitch.
Yes. Yeah. Well, in the collective you,
yeah.
Anybody I talk to, I might hear a different word than the word that you're intending to say. And so again, I didn't realize how many times I was saying to people, "Oh, I thought you said this. I thought you said that." So to make this long story
this
even
must be
longer.
Hell for you, because I mispronounce words all the time.
Exactly.
I will make words up.
Exactly.
And so you're over there just thinking I'm speaking in tongues a lot of the time.
Exactly. This is explaining so many issues in our marriage. So again, this was back during kind of COVID-ish times. So I got some hearing aids. I, dealt with the emotional aspect of that. But here's the thing that was happening during that time.
Mm-hmm.
We were wearing masks.
Right.
I was also at an age where I was starting to have to wear reading glasses.
Yes.
And then you're adding hearing aids to that. And then icing on the cake, I had started Invisalign treatment for my teeth that had gone crooked after.
You had a lot going on.
I had a lot going on. It was too much. In addition to this, I have sensory issues. And so it was just too much. So the hearing aids went away in the drawer and, have lived there for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward a few months ago, I just noticed that it is really torturous for me to be in a restaurant, in a crowded space, listening to somebody over a loudspeaker. And one of the things that the hearing aids do is they help tamper that down. Mm-hmm. So what my hearing aids are for primarily is one for tinnitus treatment. Mm-hmm. So there's what they do is they find a pitch of a kind of a white noise that kind of balances out your ringing in your ear. So it helps your brain not to focus on that. And then also I can turn things to where I can make noises less harsh, I guess is what I'm saying. So these are my primary purposes. The third thing is it's supposed to help me hear. But the doctor has told me our first two priorities are the tinnitus and sound sensitivity, which, yes, I agree. Mm-hmm. Here's where this is causing a problem in our house.
Because there's not a button for he talks to me like a secretary.
There's not. I need that button. I'm pretty sure it's a shock collar and I'm not the one wearing it. So anyways, I went back in a couple of weeks ago. I said, okay, I need to restart with these. Teach me again. They did this. They held my hand through this process of showing me how to use those, how to, make them work for me. But in doing so, the white noise in my ears constantly is in order to counteract and to start kind of the therapy of getting my brain to stop focusing on the ringing.
Right.
The white noise is so loud, I can't hear you now at all.
Right.
And so...
Plus, we got Burl Ives, wafting through the house as well. So you got all kinds of sounds going on.
Well, I know. And do you hear what I hear is taking on a whole new meaning for me this year at Christmas. So
well played.
So yes.
Well played.
So anyways, so that's the first thing. Is just that I'm getting so frustrated and you're getting so frustrated because you'll say something. I'm like, I cannot hear you over this white noise in my ears. It's driving me nuts. Yeah. But the other thing is we were realizing today as we were driving around that now you said, I think I'm understanding why older people always blame everything on their hearing aids. And I said, you know what? You are right.
I did say that.
Because I know now that in the morning when I get up and put them on, sounds are so amplified, it's painful.
Yeah.
So I immediately turn them down. It's
really
so
hurts.
loud.
You say, yeah.
So I immediately turn them down. So you and I talked about how now we just feel so bad for, rolling our eyes when people say, oh, it's my hearing aids. No, it legit is. People are turning them down. So maybe they don't want to hear you. I don't know. But anyways, so that's been just kind of all consuming for us the last couple of weeks. We're trying to find a new normal with me having constant sound in my ears and not necessarily now being able to hear even more. But it's supposed to, again, the first two priorities are the tinnitus and the sound sensitivity. So we're working on it. I'm frustrated. You are frustrated. So I don't know. I just thought it might be something of interest.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that because, it is. It's something that people go through in life and you're going through it right now. And, appreciate you, sharing that. But it is a struggle and I feel for you. And I know the audience feels for me. So
Nobody wants you to have a secretary that's hard of hearing.
That's
Mitch.
right. That's right. You got the glasses down by your nose. You got hearing aids.
No. Let's follow
through. You got a
through.
retainer.
No, yeah. Well, I do have a retainer. No, the Invisalign's gone. I've got my contacts now, so that I don't have to wear reading glasses. Obviously, we're not having to mask anymore. So now the priority. And here's the other thing. Here is the other way the patriarchy is just screwing us over again.
Oh, here we go.
So when I go in to get these things fitted, my complaint is they will not stay in my ear. They won't. So they've had to put these tips on the little, I don't know, nodules that go in your ear that are basically pediatric. And so thought, okay, this is just a me problem. Well, the girl that I was working with last week, she's like, no, they make these things so big because because old men are what they used for any sort of like, I don't know, what do you call
Model.
that? Model
Yeah,
for
yeah.
anything. And so they don't really make the tips for
Right.
the hearing aids
Yeah.
that go into
And I don't know if you've seen old men ears.
Ex-
They are ginormous.
exactly. And so, yeah, I was like, dadgum the patriarchy. Here we are again. Like my car,
Got to fight it at every turn, Missy.
they don't crash test anybody in a car that's, not the size of a man. So
Right.
anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
But I actually was thinking about this as we had our interview this week because we talked to Faith Clarke, who's an author and activist and educator who uses her expertise as well as her experience in raising a child with autism to do a lot of educating and coaching in both the business space and church spaces and just relational spaces. And let me tell you, she was fascinating. And one of the things that she said that kind of resonated with me, again, in this moment where I'm trying to figure out how to exist in the world with a very different now way of sensory intake.
Sure.
She talked about, and I loved what she said. She said, she was talking about church specifically at that moment, but it could go to any organization. We have to admit that we're exclusive and that we need to work on inclusion before we work on diversity in all spaces. And she said, diversity before inclusion is performative and harmful. And so that led into a comment, which again is the one that really resonated with me right now. She said from her she was a software designer, and she said from that lens, she said, if you design for the hardest problems, everyone benefits. If you design for people who aren't, completely neurotypical or who do have sensory issues or who do have everything from learning differences to physical differences, if you design for those, like, again, she's putting on her designer hat, which is what you do in any sort of business. You design for the worst problems and work your way back. If we would do that in spaces such as churches and schools and gathering spaces, she said, it makes it easier for everyone. And so I think about how true that is. And she even mentioned how when churches or organizations do this, then you realize how many people are benefiting because of how many people were masking to just be in a space. And I don't know, that just resonated so much with me right now in real time. But I was fascinated by her work and what she had to offer in helping us to reframe how we exist in the world, how we exist particularly in faith spaces, and how exclusive we really have become.
Yeah, Faith was really remarkable. I really enjoyed our conversation. We didn't know her that well prior to having her on the pod, but once we got talking, I mean, just the wisdom that she, gave us was just really remarkable. So I know our audience is going to enjoy our conversation with Faith Clarke, who is, as you said, an educator, an advocate, and an author. And so we'll be right back with Faith Clarke as soon as Missy gets me a cup of cocoa. We'll be right back. Good Faith Media is the new home of A Sermon for Every Sunday. This free resource offers lectionary-based video sermons by America's best preachers for use in worship, Bible study, small groups, Sunday school classes, or for individual use. All you do is push the button. With A Sermon for Every Sunday, you can be inspired by and learn from some amazing preachers: Otis Moss III, Amy Butler, Brian McLaren, Starlette Thomas, Will Willimon, Michael Curry, and many, many more. Hundreds and hundreds of free sermons are waiting just for you. You can find them at goodfaithmedia.org or asermonforeverysunday.com. Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, we've got a very special guest with us. Organizational culture and teamwork specialist Faith Clarke is committed to helping business leaders cultivate a values-infused, inclusive culture where people feel like they belong so that they can deliver on their business and social impact promises. Faith is particularly passionate about inclusion for BIPOC and neurodistinct individuals, grounded in her experience as a Caribbean immigrant and as a mother of a neurodistinct human being. Faith has a background in computer engineering, doctoral research, and teamwork, and is a published researcher, author of the Amazon bestseller, Parent Like a Ninja, and co host of the Feminist Founders podcast. She originated the Peak Performing Team podcast, has contributed widely to publications and online shows in the US and UK, and delivers workshops and lectures in a variety of academic and professional settings. Faith, welcome to Good Faith Weekly.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here, Mitch and Missy.
So, Faith, thank you so much for joining us this week. I have to ask, here we are mid-December. How is your holiday season going? What's your to-do list looking like? Are you on top of things or overwhelmed?
I'm not overwhelmed because it's like I've forgotten. It's like the holidays are in my heart, but not yet in my house. And I'm just like, you know what? It will be what it will be. But yeah.
I love that
is a hoot.
phrase.
Yeah, we
in
have.
my heart, but not in my
I find I
house.
have to get it in my house in order to get the heart aligned. So yes, we talked about that last week. Christmas has thrown up all over our house, and it helps with my mental state. So
Agreed.
well, Faith, go ahead.
I just want to say I have adult kids and they are not as biddable as they were in the younger versions of themselves. And they were the ones that put up all the decorations. So
Right, yeah.
I'm just trying to get somebody to get the tree out to the basement. And
I feel that as well. Our kiddos are adults as well, but so it has become, yes, a task for the two of us.
That's
Yes,
right. That's
which,
exactly right.
you know, can go one way or the other depending on our moods.
I'm just here to serve Mrs. Claus.
That's right.
That's all
right.
I'm here to do.
So, Faith, a few years back, you published a book, as Mitch mentioned in your bio, called Parenting Like a Ninja, an Autism Mom's Guide to Professional Productivity, which I was able to work through over the last week and found it fascinating.
Yeah.
It was such a great read. I mean, for so many aspects of life, like you said, you touch on, your professional life, your personal life, and also adding in a layer of parenting a child with some neurodivergent issues. And so tell us a little bit more about your story and kind of how the book came to be.
I blogged pretty consistently for years as part of my own coping with parenting. I was parenting, I was homeschooling, and wanting to really live out my values very intentionally. And so as I got steady I was in a communal blog, I was blogging in a faith-based devotional, and I did my own blogs. I would produce these pieces of just, this is what I'm dealing with today. So when I decided to coach parents, and that was, coming out of my own quest of, well, what did I do to move from a place of real overwhelm and depression to something that feels gratifying. And I had to make some very specific choices to be able to do that move. I wanted to document that for parents because I was constantly in these conversations with mothers in particular. And there's a sweet spot that you kind of go over and crash into depression somewhere between the ages, when your child is between the ages of 7 and 9, when your child with autism loses, for me anyway, the cuteness and the babiness, and you begin to confront the long haul nature of the parenting. And so I wanted to be able to offer support, particularly to women before that, about how to hold on to themselves and some of the stuff that I had been learning that I had let go of in the pursuit of care for my son, and just recognizing the zero-sum game I was playing, that I was really trying to care for him at the expense of myself. So that prompted the writing of the book as an entry into supporting women more intentionally.
Yeah, it really was a great book, like you said, just in helping women, especially those who have extra parenting challenges with neurodivergent or special needs kiddos. And I don't know how you managed to do it all. You have done it all, and it's very inspiring. Like you said, homeschooling plus, having other children in the home as well, keeping your professional career going. It is very inspirational, and you provide some really great tools, some great exercises for moms, really of all types, or primary parents who are trying to to find fulfillment still in that professional life while still, being there and present for your kids.
Yeah, yeah. I part of what I noted is that parents would say to me, my self-care is my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
I could feel in my body the no, like it was
right.
almost the Holy Spirit was like, no, so there was a way that I really wanted to, as early as possible, interrupt that because the incidents and the research around mental health vulnerabilities for parents and the PTSD type symptoms that we can experience, as well as the spread in the family, there's a lot of data, chronic illness for parents and siblings dealing with the mental health vulnerabilities. So the intervention that's needed is not just for the kid.
Mm.
And I wanted to be able to offer a little bit more of a anchoring and support, so that as we're thinking about it in much more sustainable ways.
Do you think that's compounded for moms in particular of special needs kiddos? Because as women, culturally, societally, we are taught that our fulfillment is supposed to come from caring for our families and taking care of those in our home and all of that. Is that just, to me, it seems like it's exponentially compounded and then detrimental to a person's whole self.
Yeah, I mean, there are a variety of factors, I think, Missy, but one of them is that globally, 70 to 80% of care labor, and it's invisible labor,
Mm-hmm.
but 70 to 80% of care labor is done by women.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that feels like care is automatically absorbed by the primary caregiver, often a mother or woman, in the family situation. And I think so, therefore, the weight, that sense of responsibility, our society has also taught us that we are responsible for creating the environment for everything else. We are the underpinnings for so much, and so, but not recognized for it. So this almost impossible type of situation where this person is not doing what is expected, there's a built-in sense of over responsibility in terms of dealing with that. And that combined with lack of communal support, especially in this part of the world where we are not doing parenting. We're doing parenting is a solo or couple
Mm-hmm.
job. We're not doing, village parenting, even though we say we need to be.
Right.
So the weight of it is pretty significant on mothers.
Yeah. So, and Faith, you write in the book and in other outlets about the importance of parents refocusing or recalibrating their lives. And when you and I first corresponded, which was months ago now, you wrote this in an email to me. And I really want to read it because I was really intrigued and inspired by this. You said, my life with God has led me to engage in a gentler, more expansive, less colonial, and therefore more integrated expression of faith. Again, that was both intriguing and inspiring to me. So, what do you mean when you talk about the importance of refocusing and recalibrating life?
I think many of us don't recognize that our faith and the way we're living our life has just been handed to us.
Mhm.
And so there is very little to interrogate when it's working okay. And often some kind of earthquake event, Pete Scazzaro, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, was the first place I encountered earthquake event. A thing that happens and you're just like, wait, what?
Mhm.
Things just don't work. And whether that's something like a divorce or death, or in my case, it's the presence of somebody with a disability. So it can be illness. Something happens, and then you start to say, the rules that I had taken in for life and for faith don't seem to be adding up.
Mhm.
And for some of us, it's, did I do something wrong? Is it that God is mad at me? People told us at the time, my then husband, that it was our sin. That, I mean, I'm thinking it's straight 2000s and we're still saying stuff like this, but
Right.
it
Right. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
our sin that has caused the autism. And it's,
Mhm.
so we do have these rules that we've taken on, and many of us will engage some kind of event that then says, what's going on? And I think for me, in the exploring of that, what is going on, I do remember moments I was pregnant with my second child while also wrestling with what is autism and what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, I can't say God said to me, although I do, but I felt this sense of knowing that I wanted the miracle of healing. I wanted it to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, I want that. And I felt inside of me, you want the one time experience of this, of my power, but not the daily experience of my power in coping.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought me to is there another way to experience the miracle?
Mm-hmm.
And what are all of these different ways of experiencing the miracle? And do we all experience the same miracle? And so when I say gentler and more integrated, it starts off by breaking the rules that if I do this, then I have this. If I do this, then this will go. And into, is there an individualized experience with God that my head understood,
Mm-hmm.
but no, I had to kind of begin to wrestle with it in my heart, that allows me to be in the middle of God's grace while up at 2 a.m. with a kid who won't sleep and who's struggling with his regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And is there grace there, and is there miracle there? And so that became, I think, a doorway to understanding so much more.
Yeah.
And to interrogating. Once you start interrogating the rules, then you start to interrogate the frame that the rules are in. And that's kind of what led me to, oh wow, empire, colonizer,
Right.
and that an empire and colonizer and structure doesn't mean for me that I have to release God,
Mm-hmm.
but it did mean that I had a lens to question, and to say, who's served by this
Right.
rule? What else could have been the reason for this rule? We have 15 interpretations of this word, and we chose this one. What are some of the factors behind that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, neurodivergence with my kids allowed me to also recognize, oh, wow, we have an entire religious system that's dependent on brains working a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
Could God have excluded my kids? Like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Right.
I think that my God that embraces my kids then is not tied to whether we understand the Hebrew and the Greek.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if that, so there was a way that just being in this parenting relationship and being willing to let the structure break and ask the questions introduced me to, oh, the rules are mine and the rules are environment, but maybe God is embracing me, whether I understand the right set of rules or not, and whether even,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that I hold any of the
Yeah.
rules.
And that was so intriguing to me and inspiring in our conversation that we had several months ago, that as a Caribbean immigrant to the United States, and as an indigenous person myself, you and I talked about the process of decolonization. And when you spoke about that intersectionality of being a parent of a special needs child, and then also decolonizing your faith, that was, I mean, I had been working through decolonization myself, but when you put those together, that was really, really inspiring to me.
I think
Mm.
one thing that you said a moment ago that really rings just so loud in my ear is, how we're told, and again, this is kind of a colonized faith of, well, I'm told if I just do this, then this will happen. Well, who's
Yeah.
telling us that if you do this, then this will be
Yeah.
the result? And I think
Yeah.
that's what we have to unpack. And like you said, nothing will make you unpack the way you look at the world better than a neurodivergent person.
Mhm.
And you obviously had that in your child. And that was such, like you said, look at the blessings and the gifts you see of really just being forced to see the world in a completely different way, and realizing, where do these thoughts, where do these ideas, where do these constructs come from? And I just think that the way you're able to communicate this is such a gift.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
I also want to talk a minute about, because you write about just the feeling of isolation, again, of parenting a special needs child. And you talk about your compassionate sister friends that didn't know how to support you or even what to say. And you talk about the frustration of even being in a play date, with other parents who are complaining about things with their kids that just don't really resonate with you. And I mean, it took me back to a place of knowing what that feels like to be in a space with other parents and feeling like you can't relate. So talk to us a little bit about that isolation and also how you managed to find community beyond that and how you're finding community now.
Yeah, I think I'll touch on isolation within the broader context. I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to say that I feel grateful as much as I wouldn't have chosen autism.
Right.
I feel grateful for the up close experience of exclusion and isolation because it has given me an embodied sense of what belonging feels like. I think when you always belong, it's like a white wall. You don't know what it is. And part of what a lot of our communities are struggling with as we struggle with inclusion and diversity and equity and justice is that we haven't we haven't gotten close to the version of ourselves that didn't belong.
Mm-hmm.
Those versions do exist, but we don't kind of befriend them. And so for me, I didn't expect to have a child that had a disability. So I was, studying all the parenting books and I knew all the things. And plus, I'm a little bit of a health nut. So I was like, we're going to have all breast milk. We're going to do all the things.
Right.
And he's going to be a genius. And not only him, but his brothers are going to be in a band and they're going to play worship music. And I had the whole thing. And there is the grieving of the loss of that is also grieving the loss of people who still hold that vision for
Right.
themselves and their kids, and recognizing that every single day we're talking about different things. And so I tried with my friends to say this is what I need in terms of community and connection. And I have had friends, I'm really grateful that I've had friends for 40 years and they continue to be in my life. But you can't explain what you need. And so now I say to people, when people say, just tell us what you need and we'll show up, I say to people that when you are in the majority, you are in a privileged group and you have more capacity than that person who actually needs something. So you need to go out and find out what they need. So a lot of my community, became people who would be willing to just show up, like
Right.
just just be in space with me, because you can't know what it's like to have a kid with autism or that I need any particular thing if you're not willing to show up. And part of my own practice has been cultivating a certain level of transparency, which is why I was blogging. I'd say, yep, this is what's going on. 2 o'clock in the morning, Jaden hasn't slept, and therefore I haven't slept. And when I, there are times when after I stopped homeschooling, I sent my kids off to school and then I missed them. And so I went and volunteered at their school. But then at their school, I would say I cannot be in a first period class because I've dropped these kids off and I haven't slept. So I need some regulation time for my own self because all my kids are neurovariant in some way. And so I need a minute to stare at the sky.
Right.
And just training, but sensitizing community to when they see me through the lens of the experience I'm having and recognize, no, I'm not just being ornery. No, I'm not just being spoiled or whatever things that we kind of see. I am trying to respond to the needs that exist because of the life I live. And to make space for that. And I think for myself right now, similar to what I did then, I would seek out people who are at 2 o'clock in the morning and I went on Facebook. I'd be like, there are other moms who are posting at this time. And I'd be like, hey, and I would pray for, like, there is a mother who's up right now somewhere in the world with a kid who is yelling, and maybe she's even less accepted than I am, and she has to be walking with this kid screaming far away because people are going to be disturbed or she's going to be excluded or whatever it is. And I would just pray for the random mom and just reaching out to people who I knew and building community with people who I knew how were having a similar experience to me. It's part of what I did. And I think as I now work and utilize all of these principles in my work in inclusion and belonging, I try to stay looking at life through the lens of my difference, to understand what other people's experiences are like, even though their differences might be different than mine. So parenting a kid with autism and being an immigrant, these are the lenses I look through. How does that help me support a person with a chronic illness? How does that help me support a person with extreme sensory sensitivities that is also brilliant and working in a corporate space, but people think that they're moody? How does that help me support, like, everybody has a thing that's different from mine, and instead of moralizing the difference, if I stay close to my own and what I need, it helps me think about designing both community and environments for other people through the lens of their difference.
Yeah. Another topic, you mentioned, school a moment ago, but in that same light, you also talk about churches and other organizations and the difficulties that they have in providing safe, productive spaces for families with children dealing with special needs. You wrote in the book, the modern organization needs staff who integrate a variety of skills and knowledge to solve the complex modern problems that they face. So,
Yeah.
Faith, how can churches and organizations be better equipped to help families?
Where do do I have a weekend?
I was just going to say, that's a really loaded
Sorry.
question.
I think the church has to admit
Mhm.
that it's exclusive.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult. I tend to say in most organizational spaces that people need to work on inclusion before they work on diversity. I think diversity before inclusion is performative and is harmful to people. And I think if churches are going to kind of put a dent in this issue, part of the thing is admitting that we have created a structure that says if you act this way and if you act this way, you belong. You
Mhm.
prove your belonging through behavior.
Ah,
And this is how this
right.
is what we do. And so especially, train up a child in the way he should grow, right? So not only does my son not belong, but I don't belong either. And even though people say, no, 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 bring him so that we can, be around him, we're not acknowledging that in the undercurrent is a
Mhm.
judgment that if I'm doing it hard enough, praying more, my kid would be doing better.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, admit that we're exclusionary. I think the second thing is the people who are the experts on what they need are the people with complex needs. And I used to be a software designer, and I think from a design lens, if you design for the hardest problems, everyone benefits.
Mhm.
So design programming that works for people who can't sit still. Design programming for people who aren't just auditory processors. Design programming for people, like, design for the misfits and oddballs and the, superheroes that just need more support. If you were to do that, you'd actually find that half the congregation is masking, and church is so effortful because everybody is just trying their best to mask what's going on for them. And if we were to just kind of reshape who are we catering to in our programming and our events, if we're catering to all the people who are in the power, have power identities, which means able and, cis, and like, if we're only programming for those people, then we haven't offered radical invitations to the other people. And I think the last thing that we have to do better at, well, there are lots of things, but last thing I'll say is that I experience many church folk as almost like an emergency room type of model. If you're in crisis and you come in, like, we're all over it, we love on you, food, support, we're visiting, and then we go.
Yeah.
And there has to be some kind of shift into long form care and support, which is really about friendship. And we still are affinity based in our friendship. So it's me and my friend, but that's different from when people come into our communities. how are we cultivating long game relationships with them that don't require them to perform? I think if you can build a trusting relationship with me, then I can trust you with my son, who is now an adult, but may still struggle with keeping his clothes on. But I can't trust you with that if you're not able to build a long-form relationship with me. So I think our discipleship model needs to be much more relational, and not like performative relational, but like really where the rubber meets the road, where people are concerned.
Great suggestions.
Okay, I'm bookmarking that entire little diatribe because
that
was amazing. Yes, and when you talk about when we expand, I don't know how you said it, but when we expand our understanding, when we look to include people who are who do have differences, everyone benefits.
Absolutely.
Like you said, then you realize how many people are masking, and so you've got this subset of people who are able to fall in line, but not necessarily comfortably or authentically, who are all of a sudden freer. That was incredible. Amazing. So thank you. So I want to circle back a little bit to what kind of topic we touched on earlier, but the importance of experiencing self-care. And you write in one part of the book that energy can't really be created but transferred from one form to another. When we are healthy, we can create all the energy we need. When we don't create the energy we need to act, we can become quite unhealthy. And I'm a big believer in the energy concept, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transferred. And that just kind of seems to permeate a lot of areas of my life. So I especially appreciated you putting that in this context. So what are some techniques that you have used or continue to use to ensure that you have that energy, that you have that self-care, so that you can be what you need to be in the world?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I'm like, I need to go read that book again. Part of the decolonizing, I think, for me, is being willing to learn who I am. We do have structures in society that program us to be particular ways. And I cannot care for me if I don't know me. But that means I have to give up and release the rules about who I should be. And so, like, I hinted at that in the book, but that's almost 10 years ago. It's
was it?
It was like 2016, 17 in the writing, and then publishing in 2018. But anyway, so that the more I've come to understand myself, the more I can get close to what do I actually need, and then give myself permission to give myself that. What lights me up, not what should light me up, but what lights me up. What do I care about? How do I infuse what I care about? So I tell people that my jam, relationships are my jam. What would I do? I said this in the book. What would I do at 2 a.m, having not slept for days? Talk to somebody, have a good conversation. No, I'm challenged when people feel a little superficial. I'm not good at small talk. I'm going to go deep and fast. What does that mean for me? Having one of my good friends calls it the omelet moment. This long coffee and omelet time with people, that's food for me. So I need to plan that in. I need to make sure I'm getting that. It means that designing my business so that I can have the time to really build community and connection with a client versus kind of coming in on the top and just hitting it. Like, I'm not transactional that way. And if I work in transactional ways, it's extractive to me. So for me, self-care isn't just about massages and nails or gym or even good food. It's about what are the rhythms that are deeply aligned with who you are as a person, and how can you infuse those rhythms in every part of your life. So when we started homeschooling, it really was about, I am not a morning person. The school bus arrives at 6:45. What is this cruelty? 6:45?
Preach.
10 o'clock is when we start. I'm like, I used to say,
I don't know what you two are talking about. Good things happen at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Nothing good happens at 6 a.m.
I would tell people that I don't people before noon, and so how do you honor the creation? And like, if this is incarnation right here, if this is God in flesh, how am I honoring me? And so I think that that becomes the foundation for me of everything that is nourishing and everything that's replenishment, and therefore my ability to give.
Well, I have to tell you, we are kindred spirits in this regard. And
Exactly.
Mitch knows better than to schedule any of these
Yeah.
interviews before,
Yeah.
Noon. So this is every now and again, a guest will say, I can only do it at 9. And he'll have to come. He's like, listen, I'm sorry. This is the only time. So I feel this so deeply.
Yeah, Faith, I have a word count, a word limit that I'm able to use and not use before 10 o'clock in the morning. So
100%. But I think the point that you made that is so important is knowing yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how difficult that is for so many of us to just know ourselves and our needs.
Yeah.
Well, Faith, I've got one more question for you, and I just found this extremely interesting. You tell a story in the book about a person by the name of Joshua, who hosts a special needs family vacation. And she says that looking back, she wishes that she was able to tell the difference between urgent and important. So, lots going on in the world these days, Faith. I don't have to tell you. But what would you say is urgent and what would you say is important at this moment in time?
I tell my kids that the only thing that's urgent is bleeding and death. So in other words, don't be frivolous in what you approach me with. I think that we in this part of the world have a kind of fright response to so many things, and it stops us from doing the important work. And so there is a lot, though, of bleeding and death that's happening that feels really urgent. And yet, for me, the essential work right now, the essential is relationship with people across difference. It's the changing our minds and our hearts about how we see difference in a way that stops us from moralizing it, in a way that stops us from othering another human being. Because the moment we've othered another human being, the gates are open as to what could happen to that person. And then that person's response, othering us, then creates a lot of what we're seeing that's urgent right now. We could definitely put a ton of effort into any one of a million of these crises that we're in. But the thing that I think helps us right now is if we could be tending to what's happening in our hearts and shifting that and being with each other in the middle of these crises will set things up better for the future. I don't want better feels weak, but I don't see any other way forward outside of breaking how we interact with each other as people.
Wise words. Well, Faith Clarke, best-selling author, podcast co-host, thank you so much for joining us this week on Good Faith Weekly. But Faith, before we let you go, Missy's got one last question for you, and I'm going to let her ask it.
So, Faith, as you know, our tagline at Good Faith Media is "There's more to tell." So, in light of your work and our conversation today, what is your more to tell?
I'll say it this way: exhausted leaders, particularly women, will not be able to create sustainable organizations and impact. And so part of the more is we have to figure out all this invisible labor. We have to figure out all this othering that puts work on people without seeing them. And we have to change it because otherwise we can't create the sustainable impact that we want.
Well said, Faith. Faith, you are welcome back to this podcast anytime. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your work. How can our audience find out more about the book and about your work?
So Parenting Like a Ninja is on Amazon, so they could definitely just go there. And faithclarke.com or workecosystems.com is my website.
Well, thank you again so much for being with us this week. Again, anytime, my friend, you are welcome back.
I'll hold you to it.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Missy and I will be back next week for our Christmas episode. And until next week, keep living good faith. You've You've been listening to Good Faith Weekly, hosted by Mitch and Missy Randall. This weekly podcast from Good Faith Media discusses matters of faith and culture.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and give us a like and a glowing review. We produce the podcast out of Norman, Oklahoma. Our music comes from Pond 5.
And we're supported by listeners like you. Learn more about us at goodfaithmedia.org.